Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.
I think the record is clear that you, as Prime Minister for the past 2 years and a couple of months, have done a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful job here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. I have had the distinct honor and privilege, sir, of being at meetings with you overseas, where there are other heads of government present, and they have singled me out, and they've asked me questions. I never told you this before. You are hearing it from me for the first time, as the nation is. Other prime ministers at meetings where I am present come to me and says, look, how your prime minister, how you always think it's managed to get all these things done? Your economy is the strongest economy in the region. You paid off the IMF 117 million. You gave double salary last Christmas. How you all do this? They have asked me, sir, and I don't know if they told you or they are maybe a little embarrassed. But the rest of the heads of the government in the Caribbean are very, 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 very impressed with the work that you are doing. And we here in St. Kitts and Nevis, you know, some people have always saying a prophet is without honor in your own country. I don't think this is the case, sir. I believe all of us here in St. Kitts and Nevis appreciate the wonderful work you have done so far. You have kept the economy in a state which has now become the envy of the entire Caribbean. The strongest economy in the region, the strongest growth in the region. The IMF was just here. I know you're going to speak about that later, and I'm sure you're going to give us some very good information there about the IMF and so on. But all of the indications so far, more jobs have been created, the Fresh Start program, all of the good stuff that has been there, sir. And so I think it is the way to start this morning is for me to congratulate you for the wonderful job you have been doing so far, and congratulate your cabinet, because you couldn't do it alone. All of us know that. No one-man show in this country anymore. The one-man show done long time. No more 10 men in one. This is a cabinet by consensus, and so I want to also congratulate the cabinet for giving you their full cooperation. And every time I hear the Honorable Van Samery, or Mark Brantley, or the Honorable Sean Richard speak, sir, they speak about the cohesion, the togetherness, the unity of the cabinet. And so I want to congratulate you for being able to hold the cabinet together, because a lot of people said it couldn't happen, you know. Yes, they were expecting us to mash up long time. And I said to them, in local palace, nothing at all go so. Good morning, Mr. Prime Minister. Nice to have you.
Good morning to you, Ambassador. I want to say good morning to all those who are listening to this very popular program, and to thank them for tuning in, where they can get up-to-date factual information regarding developments in St. Kitts and Nevis. I want especially to thank those who are listening overseas,
Yes.
who time after time have found your program to be a most informative one. And so I want to thank you for creating this program, which has been an answer to many of the questions which people have been asking, and an answer for an informative radio program, not one bogged down by gossip and hearsay, but one which genuinely attempts to inform, to educate,
Yes.
to enlighten our citizens and residents regarding their country. And let me record not just my personal gratitude to you for your service to the country in this regard, but specifically as a special advisor and an ambassador in the office of the Prime Minister for your many contributions thus far. Indeed, at the last meeting of the OECS Authority in St. Vincent, you led the country's desk,
Yes.
while I presided officially as the chairperson of the authority meeting. And so I want to give credit to you for your support and for bringing your experience to bear to the country at this time. And equally, I want to remind the country that Team Unity is a coming together of persons for love of St. Kitts and Nevis. Team Unity represents a historic break with the past with which some people are so obsessed. Team Unity represents a break with the past tradition of cross-partisan political politics,
Yes.
where we have agreed that we will elevate the country and the national interests above party for good of all the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is why we remain a cohesive group, a cabinet that is strong
Yes.
and which has remained resilient, notwithstanding the delusional mountains of those in opposition. I want to thank the cabinet colleagues for their support and most importantly for remaining focused on the agenda of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. If we were not focused at the cabinet, we would not have been able to have delivered so many results which have now made us the envy of so many people
Yes.
and so many countries around the world. It is remarkable, but it is the will of God that in so short a period of time we can proudly say there is no other government that has succeeded one that has been able to perform and deliver on its promises with the rapidity and sincerity with which we have done so far.
Yes.
And you marveled at this time at the special, unique standing of St. Kitts and Nevis as a well-managed country. And I intend, and we, the members of the cabinet, intend to make St. Kitts and Nevis the model of the best managed small island states in the world. And it is a realizable goal
Absolutely.
which we have set ourselves. And I want just finally on that note, in terms of how blessed we are and how appreciative the citizens and residents of St. Kitts and Nevis should be about where they are at as a country. Only this week in the news was Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico is now being classified as a bankrupt state.
Imagine that.
Imagine Puerto Rico,
Puerto Rico.
with all its proximity to the USA, with all of its special relationships with the USA, with all of its unique preferences for investment, today is a country in fiscal morass. St. Kitts and Nevis is a country with a fiscal surplus.
Absolutely.
And equally, we would have wished that Barbados, for example, would have been in a stronger position than it now was. We would have wished, and we show sympathy for the new Prime Minister, Alan Trastny, when he speaks to the illiquidity problems that is facing his country,
St. Lucia.
that the fact that he inherited a St. Lucia
Yes.
that is broke.
Yes.
St. Kitts and Nevis has amassed surpluses which we have put to good use.
Yes.
And Trinidad and Tobago is going through its own period of difficulty. We contrast these hitherto spectacular performers in the region to where they are now, and the unique case of St. Kitts and Nevis as the bright light shining in the region.
Yes, indeed.
We have no minerals. We have no oil.
Yeah.
What we are blessed with is a good progressive government that knows how to manage and that puts the interests of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis first.
Yes.
And for this we should say to God be the glory.
Amen. You see, sir, the government so far has shown compassion. When I look at programs like the HELP program, I'm not hearing about that in any other island in the Caribbean. And the last time I checked, sir, over 200 persons have been helped by the HELP program. These are people who are not in a position to help themselves, where the government goes out and spends around $10,000, improving their quality of life. This is all part of what we call the People's Prosperity Agenda. And we say that without fear of contradiction, because we have been bringing prosperity to so many people here in St. Kitts and Nevis. And people show me appreciation every day, sir. I have to tell you, Mr. PM, wherever I turn, I have people saying good things to me. I have people sending me messages from overseas and asking how is it that we are doing better in terms of our economic development, sir. And so again, I think we are in good shape, in very good shape, that at this particular point in time. And I know, sir, with your fiscal management, you're going to continue to do a wonderful job. At the same meeting you mentioned a while ago, Mr. PM, I remember a head, who shall be nameless, got up and told us that he had such fiscal problems that he had a debt to pay. And he had no money in the treasury to pay the debt. He had to go and borrow money to pay a debt. I stood up there. I tell you, I almost fainted when I heard that particular head of government say, and his Minister of Finance also, that his treasury was empty, and he had to go and borrow money to pay a debt. And so, sir, again, I think we have a lot to be thankful for. And as you say, to God be the glory.
We certainly do.
And this question that has been bothering some people, and I think some people are getting a little carried away out there about this Chinese matter, sir. And you, as the Prime Minister of the country, I believe you would want to say something about that. I came here last week Friday, and I tried to explain as best as I could as a layperson, not a member of cabinet, about the whole situation as I understood it. And I am sure, sir, that you would probably, as Prime Minister, would be in a better position to inform people as to exactly what has transpired so far. Because there's a lot of misinformation and misdirection out there in an attempt of the people who caused this problem in the first case. And what is shocking to me, here is it that the people who caused the problem are the same people who are now coming trying to blame the government. This is something, this is new. This is really new. As you have a way of saying, sir, there is no moral minimum. No moral minimum at all. There is stoop at any level in an attempt to discredit and defame this administration. So I believe the people want to hear from you as to exactly what this Chinese story is all about.
Well, I want to thank you, and I think you hit the nail on its head. This is another act of destruction, of deception, and dishonesty on behalf of the Denzil Douglas administration. And right-thinking persons will not be fooled. The difficulties that we are dealing with now are part of the bad inheritance of the Denzil Douglas regime. That government, headed by Denzil Douglas, had become a pariah in the eyes of the international community. And it is therefore strange that he who had brought the country into disrepute, he who ensured that the country's good name was sullied time after time, would now want to come and to hypocritically profess to have concern about the country and the country's program. the very Chinese who are at the heart of the discussions now were persons to whom the Denzel Douglas administration provided their citizenship.
Yes.
Therefore, these persons were never, I repeat, never facilitated by the Team Unity administration.
Yes.
And you must ask yourself, did the Denzel Douglas administration know what they were doing when they accorded citizenship to these Chinese persons? Did they do their good work on behalf of the people, or there were other motivations?
Yes.
And I will say, in my view, there appears to have been other motivations. And the clamor which they are attempting to raise to distract from their failed march, the smallest march on record,
Yes.
and after Labor Day, their story is not about the failed march. Their story is about two Chinese, they say, who are here and who they claim the government should hand over.
Smoke.
So we must ask them, why didn't you hand them over?
You had the chance.
And in the first place, if you had not given them their citizenship, they would not be here to become the subject of a conversation.
Exactly.
They gave them their passports. But not only that, the Denzel Douglas administration was careful enough to give them passports without the country of origin field.
There we go.
The Denzel Douglas administration gave them passports that hid their country of origin. Why did the Denzel Douglas administration do that? Only they can answer. So not only did they give them their citizenship, they gave them a passport which hid their country of origin
Yes.
from those who would inspect their passports. And it was a serious and dangerous act on behalf of the Denzel Douglas administration. And they were warned by the U.S. government
They were.
not to have issued passports which did not bear the country of origin field. The U.S. advised them, and we only have to go back to the U.S. responses to the lies that were being told on them by Erasmus Williams, then press secretary to Denzel Douglas. And the U.S. made it clear that they warned the administration that if they proceeded to issue passport without country of origin field, in other words, which says you are from China, rather than the face of it purport to show the world that you are a citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis, that illicit actors
Illicit actors.
would enter into the program.
Yes.
The phraseology of illicit actors is found in the Finson Advisory of May 2014.
Yes.
In other words, the U.S. was so upset with the Denzel Douglas administration and its pampering to illicit actors that it took the ultimate step of declaring to the world that the Denzel Douglas administration was presiding over a citizenship program that facilitated the participation of illicit actors.
Yes.
How dare Denzel come now to talk to us about program and about reputation of the program
Imagine.
when he destroyed the program?
That's right.
Because by May 2014, the rest of the world and every financial institution had been put on red alert
Notice, yes.
by the U.S. government
Yeah.
to the Finson Advisory that illicit actors were participating. What did they do? And to go further on the act of hypocrisy, the country should be aware that the request was sent to the Douglas administration in 2014 from Interpol.
Yes.
2014, Interpol formally advised the Denzel Douglas administration that the suspects, if you will, were coming to St. Kitts and he ought to have taken action. Indeed, in the report which was submitted in July of 2014 by the Interpol authorities from Washington, they gave the Denzel Douglas administration the name of the Chinese that was coming, the date of birth. They told the Denzel Douglas administration that the parties were traveling on British Airways flight 2157 from London Gatwick to St. Kitts,
Yes.
with a layover in Antigua. The flight is due to arrive at 15:40. This information is being relayed to the Denzel Douglas administration for them to take the necessary action and to advise Interpol. Well, if the gentleman and the lady are here as citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, and Douglas had this notice, this warning, this flash report from Interpol,
Yes.
Douglas ought to be ashamed of himself to now to be coming talking about these same persons. For if there was anyone who have harbored them, it would have been the Denzel Douglas administration.
Yes.
He would have harbored them because in light of the notice, and if he had meant well, these persons perhaps would have passed the airport because he had the information, he had the flight number, he had the time of arrival,
Yes.
and he allowed them into the country. And then he wants to blame others for his acts. They are not just acts, they are grave sins of omission and commission. But that is the nature of Denzel Douglas. And the country has come to accept him as a dishonest leader
Yes.
without a moral minimum, who will do and say anything because he has an appetite, an addiction for political power. And he will destroy anyone, including the country of St. Kitts and Nevis,
Yes.
if perchance he feels that he can secure a political opportunity. And this is what it's about.
Yes.
A man who in 2014 sat as the head of the government had the Interpol request to take action. By his inaction or otherwise allow them to come into the country. He and his administration, if there were anyone who would have harbored, must be the people responsible. But his sins are greater because he gave them a passport that concealed their country of origin.
Yes.
And we have always maintained that it was part of the dishonest frame of mind where one would want people to believe that these persons come and they only come as nationals of St. Kitts and Nevis alone when they in fact enjoy nationality and citizenship to other country. Who would have benefited from the removal of the country of origin field?
That's the question.
Douglas never answered.
That's the
because
question.
certainly it was not the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Douglas deliberately took a decision against the advice of the international community and against the practices internationally to exclude the country of origin field. That provided a gateway, and we go back again to the FinCEN advisory of May 2014, which told you what were the consequence of that unpatriotic act
Yes.
by the Denzel Douglas administration. Illicit actors were allowed to become citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis. Those are their sins. And the sins continue to impact upon St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes.
Because all those persons who Douglas gave a passport that concealed their country of origin become part of a suspicious group of personalities that countries like the USA and Canada feared would use our passport to gain access to their countries, which had they known that they were a citizen of another jurisdiction, they would not have granted them access.
Absolutely.
Denzel Douglas was the man and the leader of the country that took that unpatriotic decision. Because those of us who born here, who are genuine citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis, are proud of the land of our birth. And we would want others to know where we come from. By removing it, he was in service to other personalities.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
This is what had happened. He had lost touch with reality. He had showed a preference to those persons from yonder, and he was reckless in his approach to the program. So much so that it hurt us not only reputationally, but it hurt us and it continues to hurt us even now. The sin of omission and commission by the Denzel Douglas administration means up to now, if you wanted to go to Canada
Here we go.
for a funeral, for a wedding, for a graduation,
Family emergency.
before Denzel Douglas mixed up and messed up the reputation of St. Kitts and Nevis, all you needed to do was to buy your ticket.
Yes.
Going to Canada was as easy as going to St. Martin, Antigua, Jamaica. All you required was an updated passport in terms of the time and the ticket to go. The Denzel Douglas administration destroyed that ability and ease for us when in November 2014 the Canadian government, having come to the conclusion that Denzel Douglas would not hear, would not listen, would not heed proper advice, told us again in their diplomatic disclosures that it was a last resort measure they had taken, that they did not intend that it should hurt our citizens. But nonetheless, because of one man, we may well say one bad man,
Very bad man.
a leader that proclaimed that he was bad until he's small,
Since he born.
and did so much bad things to our country's reputation. He is the cause. Saturday, I was on a health walk. A young man from my constituency driving along saw me, stopped to talk to me, living in Atola, anxious to get to Canada, and he was told it's not easy
Yeah.
like once ago. Denzel Douglas calls that. And for all the other persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, wherever they are living, in New York, in Texas, who are having difficulties to travel to Canada, all this is because of Denzel Douglas
Recklessness.
and his reckless approach to the management of our citizenship program. Denzel Douglas has no shame. He has no moral authority, and he has no sense of history for him to want to be the person making accusation about the citizenship program which he left in ICU when he left office. And I want Denzel Douglas to say, what did the Secretary of State say to him in the last dipnote? In the last dipnote that was sent to him directly, the last response he got from the U.S. Secretary of State, challenge him that if he were man enough to issue citizenship to persons who pursue it to the economic route, he must be prepared to face the consequences.
Consequences, yes.
He put our program and our country's reputation at risk. And that is what we are attempting to salvage. That is what this is about.
Yes.
We are now attempting a salvage mission to restore life to a program that was important to us, yes, but had the wrong leadership. So that is what this is about. So the man and the administration that brought the Chinese to our shores, the Denzel Douglas administration, the Denzel Douglas administration also gave them a passport that did not carry their country of origin in it. The Denzel Douglas administration did not respond to the Interpol request for them to take action on the date and the time when these people were likely to arrive in St. Kitts.
And Mr. PM,
So this is Douglas calamity.
yes, and we can understand why.
This is Douglas sin.
We can understand why, because what? If you came to me and you wanted to St. Kitts passport badly, because your own passport from the country where you're born can't get you to certain places that you want to go, and you're willing to pay a lot of money. Well, we don't know how much money was paid. We have heard stories about people paying up to $1 million US for a passport. We have heard stories like those. We don't know how much money was paid this time. Now, when I don't collect your money and the passport turn out to be no good, what will happen to me? You expect me now to come to tell you, well, I'm going to arrest you because I gave you a passport that didn't have in the fee after I don't take your money? That's the problem in yourself. That is the problem. Having taken the money from these people, he couldn't turn around and arrest them or do anything to them, and now he's trying to blame other people. That is the nastiness of the guy.
You're very good. My grandma would have said that man Denzel Douglas is a nasty, nasty man.
That's right.
Because when you look at the information I've just provided, you know, it is he who quoted them.
Yes.
It is his administration that provided them with their citizenship.
Take my money.
His administration that provided them with a special passport. It is his administration that allowed them entry into the country in spite of the fact that he had knowledge
And be warned.
that had come to him from Interpol that they were coming to his country. He did nothing. Nothing at all
Couldn't do
whatsoever.
anything, man. Don't take the people money.
And
Couldn't do
so
anything.
he want to now blame his mess on us. So we came in with a situation were those persons given their citizenship by Denzel Douglas. The question before the cabinet and the Attorney General, how do you deal with these situations?
Yes.
We are a country governed by the rule of law.
Rule of law.
We are a country with a constitution which we take the oath to uphold. And my governments always follow the rule of law.
Yes.
For the rule of law, it's what protects us. The rule of law, it's what brings certainty to our operations and processes. And the rule of law, it's what allows us to become a responsible member of the international community.
Yes.
We promise that we will not go down the pathway of the Denzel Douglas administration, and we certainly will not go down that pathway. And so we ask for the legal advice. But we have a memory, those of us who are old enough. Denzel Douglas presided over extradition requests for a number of people.
Yes.
So we know how that process works. We know how long it takes. So therefore, how could this hypocritical being now come to say, well, hand them over, and I have handed them over, he said. Lies, malicious lies, with an intent to deceive an unsuspecting public.
Yes.
And this is part now of the flawed character of Denzel Douglas. Denzel Douglas was characterized by a High Court judge as being a stranger to the truth.
Stranger to the
And
truth.
therefore, anything that Douglas brings to the public without hard evidence must be treated as the manufacturings of a man declared, and he's the only leader in a democratic country that I'm aware that has been described by a High Court judge as a stranger to the truth.
And he is.
And he is a stranger to the truth. He lied, and the U.S. government forced the U.S. government to respond to a press release put out by Erasmus Williams saying that they had encouraged him to issue the passport without
I remember
country
that.
of origin for you.
I remember that. I remember
That is the
that.
nature of the man. And he has told other lies. And when he tells a lie, he magnifies it.
Yes.
So, for example, he told a lie about crying over the electricity.
Oh, yes.
That was the lie of so many families. He wanted to bail because he never knew that the electricity, which he had increased by 85%, was going to hurt poor people that way. And to add to the unbelievability, to show that he was a man without a moral minimum, who would stoop to any law, he says, come and march with me.
That's right.
Let us march against this high electricity. But it is he who imposed it.
That's right.
And in the meeting in Kayan, the truth rise. The truth will always rise, as the truth was lifted up in Kayan by a young lady named Joan Mitchum.
Yes.
Joan Mitchum of Lodgeville got up in the town hall meeting in Kayan, and she said to Denzel Douglas, why you think this a all fool's day? Is you put on the charges on the electricity. Don't come tell me no foolishness.
Exactly.
Don't march with you.
Exactly.
And that brought sanity to the insane views that are being put forward. And it is the same reckless disregard for truth that we have seen reflected time and time again. The sugar industry will not close over my dead body,
Yes.
but it closed And he refused to pay those who had worked 50 years, like Joe Hercules and Chemical Wilson, refused to give them their due. It took team unity to clean up that mess.
Yes.
Shall we be in a state of perpetual cleansing of the dirt and the muck left behind by the Denzel Douglas administration? 968 persons gave him any form of severance payments by him in 2005-2006. Over 2,000 being granted by our administration. Let Douglas explain what is the procedure for extradition. How did he deal with the Lieutenant Mueller matter?
There you go.
How long had he kept Lieutenant Mueller in St. Kitts? And what was the reason that he gave to the U.S. authorities for the many years? The United States government is a diplomatic ally of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes, it is.
Lieutenant had a serious charge being proffered against him. Lieutenant's conduct in St. Kitts and Nevis was abominable.
Yes.
And he was a man out of control, so much so that he led to publications and news that when Lieutenant goes to see Denzel Douglas stand at attention.
Yes.
Lieutenant
See,
comes to see him.
he used to put his foot upon Douglas' neck.
Stands at attention. That is what it was. And for years, Lieutenant was here. Douglas can't say nothing. And the U.S. government warned and warned
Over and over.
the Lieutenant matter. So how come suddenly they believe that a team unity administration could take up any citizen, even a bad one, and just give them up to somebody without due process? We are a country, I must remind us, guided by the rule of law. But it was not just Lieutenant Mueller. It was also the question of Bobby Macho.
Yes.
That was another extradition matter. We also had the matter to do with Zambo Heat.
Yes.
Well, all these are experiences we have. So from those, we know how extraditions are being done, the time that it will normally take. And in each of those cases, it was an extradition to an allied country. And that is an important distinction.
Very important.
To a country with which we have had diplomatic ties and to which our people had become one, well, of the highest demanders for U.S. visa and U.S. facilitation. Denzel Douglas, after 28 years of leading the Labour Party to where it has now fallen in the valley, which their last teeny-weeny Labour March reflected,
Yes.
must at this stage of his life want to regain some modicum of truth in his mountains. He must want that. And he cannot continue to labor under the description as a stranger for truth. Now, we hear in this scenario that according to writers, the US government, the UK, and Australia also have some citizens for China. But how come you are hearing this hypocrisy in America, in Australia, or in the United Kingdom? And they have diplomatic relations with China.
Yes.
We have none.
We have none.
and in all the way by the likes of Marcella Liebert, who is not a very bright person, in all the way by Marcella Liebert, and say after Mick Conris, they ain't touching that because they don't want to engage in a conversation of enlightenment. They don't want to deal with the fact that if it is a problem, it is a problem created by them. Who gave him his citizenship, who gave him a special passport, which was condemned according to international practice. It is they who did not heed the instruction and advice from Interpol, not Team Unity. As with so many things, they having done the deed, we now have to determine the best course forward, having regard to the Constitution and the rule of law. And whatever we do, the pride of our country and the dignity attached to our country's name must remain intact.
Very important.
We are not a government of sidebars. When Denzel Douglas gave Alan Stanford, who ripped off so many persons, ended up in a jail in the USA, behind the preferential prices just outside the airport. We were told by one of his ministers that in relation to the displacement of the young people of Canary and their sport facilities, which Stanford get as part of his arrangements with the Douglas administration, that he had a sidebar deal with Alan Stanford. Well, you could talk with anybody. I wouldn't be so offensive as to say, well, this minister should not have spoken, that C.G. Liebert should not have spoken with Alan Stanford. But I say, you have to be clear what it is you are committing to the people on behalf of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Your private conversations are your private conversations. But when they relate to the good governance of St. Kitts and Nevis, this sidebar thing can't work. Whatever persons require of this government, they must put it in writing to this government. And I say with all the reverence, nothing has come officially to this government.
Not up until now.
Persons may say, well, this person, we're not going to engage in that. The processes of sedition are well known internationally.
Well documented.
I went through the process to deal with Zambo Heath, to deal with Little Knot, to deal with Matthew, for one reason and one reason only. Not just to rehash, but to say we have an abundant history of recent vintage to help guide us as to how extraditions should be done. We are a country governed by the rule of law. A citizen is entitled to due processes. That is a fundamental right of citizenship in any functioning democracy. And we are a functioning democracy. The sick minds that are perpetuating the lies about money, if that was a practice under the Douglas administration, that is not a practice.
It is not
under the Team Unity administration. That certainly is not. If they have evidence, take them to the relevant authorities. Take credible evidence, actionable evidence to the appropriate authorities, and justice will be done. You see, Douglas believed in melee and hearsay
Yes.
and in scandalizing people by innuendo and otherwise. That has been his practice. He and I are in court
Yes.
over several allegations that he made, in my view, mischievously
That he
and
don't-
maliciously.
That he know not true.
And my response to it, the court of law will vindicate it. Let him go there, because in the court of law, you need evidence.
Evidence.
That is what we are saying. So we have not let and allowed ourselves to be sidetracked by this matter, Ambassador. We met as a cabinet on several occasions, and the cabinet was clear as to the view and as to the position and what ought to happen in the circumstances.
Yes.
We will follow the rule of law. We will act as a responsible member of the international community. We will give each of our citizens who has been accused their due opportunity to face the accuser.
Yes.
Well, these are not new things. They may be new in the context of having a government committed to them, committed to justice. That is what we are. So, all the way by Douglas, by Marcella, by the others who are part of the Bitter Club,
Yes.
they are still continue to feel hurt that the people of the country rejected them in February of 2015, and they can't get over it.
Can't get over it.
And their response is to bring their bitterness not only against me, for they have pursued a campaign of vendetta against me.
Yes, they
but
have.
I still rise.
Yes, yes,
And the last Dan Anderson poll gave comfort and lies to them. 60+% of the people of this country find favor with my performance and my government's performance.
Yes, indeed.
And they can't get over it.
Yes, indeed.
They are faced with a leader who, so long as he continue this misleading, would lead them further into oblivion, further in the valley of forgetfulness. Because Denzel Douglas cannot be the savior of the country.
Cannot be.
He cannot be a savior of the country whose reputation he destroyed
Absolutely.
economically and politically. He took us for the first time in our history as beggars to the IMF.
Yes.
And that hurt many people. For years, civil servants didn't get any increment
That is right.
because Denzel Douglas presided over the bankruptcy of the country.
That's right.
The electricity went up by 85%. Up to today, people still have arrears.
That's right.
Although Denzel Douglas, hypocrite that he is, ball in Quran and elsewhere,
Then you have
come
the
march with me. And you had the haircut that affected church, that affected banks, that affected social security, that affected the Methodist church, and we could go on and on. This is not somebody who could come back again. This is the same man that brought our reputation to an all-time low in the international community. And then he had Ed Mead as cabinet secretary, writing to an investor in St. Kitts, please, pretty please, could you help me? Could you go and talk to the Canadian government? Because this thing will mess up the program. And yet he said the program was fine.
Imagine that.
But why did you send Ed Mead? Not only did he send, he has written it and I have the communication.
Yes.
Asking for intervention. Why did he engage a firm in Washington, D.C. and pay them hundreds of thousands of dollars to help with the messaging in relation to the program? So the man is a stranger to the truth.
Yes, he is.
And all this thing coming after Labor Day, is one way to help distract the fact that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis rightfully have turned their back on what they consider to be the Douglas Labour Party, which is going nowhere. Down from our late to wherever he is now.
Going down further, man. He's going down further.
Will rescue
He's
the
going down
Hans
further.
Wade Party. Certainly not the man who have brought it in the valley of its own death. And certainly not the Rory Marcella. For Marcella is like the least of the apostles. Look from whence she has come to where she is now. She can't even win her seat properly. Who will rescue the Labour Party from where it is in the abyss? Will it be the sleeper Asim Martin, or will it be some other person? Will it be the multi-motor Mr. Jew, who for all his talk too much, the people of number 8 rejected? If there was a surprise for Labour, it was that Jew came off to nothing.
Yes.
And as he was nothing done politically, he will not rise again. We are comfortable with our opposition. Our opposition is to do right, not because of political expediency. Our opposition is to do right because the right thing to do must be done at all times, not for convenience. And we want, however tough and challenging the decisions are, that history, but not just history, our people must be able to say, I want John Doe in the circus to be able to say, this was a hard decision for my government, but they stood on principle. I want the people in West Farm who I met with on Saturday to be able to say that this is a government of class and dignity. And our support cannot be bought, and it is not open to any bidder. Our support will always be for what is in the national interest. And it is in the national interest of every citizen of St. Kitts and Nevis that this government conforms itself with the rule of law. And that is our position on the matter.
And we got 3 more years.
And we have 3 more years, so we have a long way.
He said he can't wait.
I know he can't
So
wait.
publicly, you know.
I know he can't wait because he's a power-hungry man.
Yes.
And I want him to tell the people, you know, because he wants to come back to government. He wants to say that he has reputation. Ask him when last he went to the USA. Ask him what happened to his last application for a visit to the United States.
There we go.
Ask him if he knows any prime minister in the Caribbean who, while serving as prime minister, their application for a diplomatic visa was rejected.
Yes.
Ask him if he knows and tell him Dr. Harris demands that he names that prime minister. If he doesn't want to continue to labor under the description from the High Court judge that he is a stranger to the truth, I would wish that he answers those questions regarding the visa requirement and what had happened. What is his knowledge with regard to those things? It's critically important.
It is.
Critically important. And so this is where we are at in this matter. It is a lot of noise by people who are unfit for public service, and I am not going to engage them in that,
No.
because the country must know. And the country knows, in my view, that this is a respectable government,
Yes.
and the government will respect the rule of law. It is a problem that we inherited. It is not a problem that we created. And nonetheless, we can't say that this is a Douglas problem because this is a country. And even though Douglas may be viewed as a bad man, and he himself said that he is such,
Yes.
we have to look beyond the personality of that man to what preserves the country for generations to come.
And the best decision will be made in the interest of the country.
Always,
In the interest of
always,
the country.
when there is a time for decision to be made, the decision will be made in the best interest of our country and our people. Because my administration is about people. That is why we are so pleased when the IMF came here.
Yes.
That the IMF speak how well we are doing in a difficult international arena. You listen to the French election, and one of the issues was that France was growing nowhere.
Exactly.
Economy was in shambles. And while France, as one of those countries among the G20, was being challenged to grow, 2015 we grew over 2014. 2016 we grew over 2015.
Yes.
And in 2017 the IMF say we will grow again.
Yes, indeed.
And we will be an above average performer. This issue of growth for us is not an end in itself. It speaks well to our fiscal and economic management, where we continue to proclaim, while performance is good, people matter more.
Yes.
The growth is what will ensure there are jobs that are occurring in tourism, in manufacturing, in agriculture, and which our people can rely. And that is why we are happy about that performance.
Mr. PM, I want to thank you for coming.
All the other things we were able to do, provide homes for our people.
Yes.
Just last week, a young lady who had been waiting for years could not get no support
That's
from
right.
the Douglas administration.
That's right.
We started a three-bedroom had a groundbreaking for her, signaling that our word is our bond. We started a Fresh Start program that is important to our people, because the Fresh Start is important for the ordinary people to be able to get their business up and growing.
Mr. PM, I understand that we have some onlookers outside. Like they're waiting for you
Yes.
to exit, sir.
Yes.
But you have done a wonderful job here, sir.
Farmer
And so,
ministers, farmer ministers.
farmer ministers, they say outside, they'll come to greet you. I suppose they want to congratulate you on what you're doing. So you have 1 minute, sir, to say a final thing to the country as to where we're going and how we are doing. And so far, so good.
Yes. Well, I want to say to the country, the people of the country, St. Kitts and Nevis remains in good hands.
Yes.
We are an excellent government, if I may say so.
State of the nation is
And we
well.
are performing. Our fiscal house is in order. And more persons have been put to work than in any other period of time. You rejected the Douglas administration. And with it, you rejected Marcella Liebert.
Yes.
You rejected Glenn Ghosh.
Yes.
You rejected all of them by denying them the opportunity to be part of the present governance structure of St. Kitts and Nevis.
They were told they were fired.
And you fired them. I say thank you for your confidence in the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Thank you for giving my Team Unity administration an opportunity to serve. We take your vote and your support. We value it, and I promise we will not disappoint you. You will always be in our hearts and in our minds. The election losers have nothing to do. That is why they come here
Imagine
to look on at the program. The election losers like Asim and the Motley Crew, they are up to to mischief.
Mischief.
They will not get an opportunity to sully the country's good name again. We are for the people. We will continue to work for the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, help the poor and needy, reduce the cost of services for those people that matter, provide the healthcare services which Marcella refused to provide.
That's right.
Ensure that our cancer unit at the hospital is working
Functioning.
so that right here people could access care in relation to cancers.
MRI.
That is why the MRI services are now available in St. Kitts right here, because we want to make sure that the health of our people is being addressed. And that is why the Honorable Eugene Hamilton had been given the task to bring universal health insurance here, so that those who need specialists and other health services, they would be able to have that, thanks to the caring and compassion of the Team Unity Administration. Thank you all for listening. We continue to move on, and the people of St. Kitts and Nevis will not be fooled. They will not return to their vomit. They will stay focused, and I want to give them every credit and to say their confidence is well reposed in a Team Unity Administration.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.